In other words, you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution.
You can't kill the revolution. And there's some beautiful things. I don't know if you all know Ngugi, the writer out of Kenya. He's written a play called The Trial of Didan Kamate. If you get a chance to pick that up and read, it's beautiful because it's basically, you know, the witnesses and the people on trial of Didan Kamate, and just the resolute, you know, consciousness of these people. Of course, it's fictional, but it's beautifully written. If you ever get a chance to look at it. So he's one of our warrior kings. A lot of you know Nzinga. Now you see different. We don't know what Nzinga looked like, but I had imagined that she looked. I had imagined that maybe she didn't look like this, but that she had this look. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it captures something.
It captures something. So Nzinga is Angola, but at the time, Ngola means king, and of course the Portuguese were there, and they always messing things up. It became Angola, but she was famous for her resistance to the Portuguese, not only during the enslavement process or trying to stop all of that, but also, you know, they just wrecking the culture. And there was a lot of course, she had a lot of internal struggles, of course, as they always do, and people put a lot of attention on the things that she did domestically in terms of fighting among, you know, some of the other folks. But sometimes you got to fight among your folks, get things straight, so you can do the bigger battle. So y'all know how that goes.
Tell that story.
Okay, so that's Nzinga, and you, of course, a lot of you have heard of her. You can get more information. This is a local man. You know, I try to make sure I incorporate Ghanaian history. So we're here in Ghana. I can't put all Ghanaians, but we have to represent. So we have Nkrumah. You've seen Ya Santewa, and Nkrumah is in Nzema, which is an Akan. Ya Santewa is in Ashanti, which is an Akan. Cornelius Ajete is a Ga, but Cornelius Ajete and two other men, Sergeant Atepo and I've forgotten the other one. I haven't given this presentation for a couple months, so I've slipped my mind. But anyhow, they were World War II soldiers, and they were supposed to be getting their due from the British in terms of compensation, back pay, all of these kinds of things. And of course, as they do, they reneged. Now, him and his unit had fought in Burma, and alongside him, really instrumental to the British, you know, being partial victors in World War II. But when these men went with other men to march on the capital to get their due, this Major Imray, I-M-R-A-Y, a European, just lost control and then shot into the crowd and shot a lot up. These three were killed, and I think another 60 or 70 injured. And this brought on the Accra riots. And when the Accra riots came on, that's when things become unglued. They started arresting everyone. So when you may have heard of the Big Six as you travel around Ghana, they, you know, with Nkrumah, of course, main part of them arrested these people, and eventually they had to let Nkrumah out. But the point is, this is the event that really began to bring this anti-colonial struggle to a head. So we honor Sergeant Ajete and the men who were with him. He was the leader of the three, so we give props to the leader. But they are the ones, as usual, that ignite these things, and then talented politicians and come along and take it to the next level. Maurice Bishop. Yeah, I know a lot of y'all voted for Ronald Reagan back in the day, but you shouldn't have. Maurice Bishop, B-actor, you know, with his little monkeys and all that.
Oh, man.
But anyway, Maurice Bishop, some people would call him the Fidel Castro of Grenada. And if a lot of y'all remember back in 1983 when the U.S. invaded Grenada, a country of less than 100,000, you know, the whole country could fit in the Rose Bowl, you know, but they had to go in there because they were such a huge threat, supposedly putting in this long runway and all that. But anyway, Maurice Bishop, before that, just before that, had started what they called it, he didn't start, but he was one of the instrumental people in the New Jewel movement, which was just a social, economic, political movement of the people in Grenada. So they became very quickly self-sufficient, you know, in their farming. You reduce unemployment, by some 30-something%. You know, healthcare, all of these things were really being put in place, socialized, and Grenada was coming up. And so they were the threat, the sister said, a threat of a bad example. Because, of course, at 100,000 people with no real military to speak of, they couldn't possibly have been a threat militarily or even economically. But bad example. And they're already having enough trouble with people in Castro. Now, how we got another one, right? So he's gone, but we want to give him props as one of our true Caribbean leaders. Some of you may have known about the Namitan, which are the Amazon warriors, the women warriors of Benin. The women warriors of Benin, at the time they were supporting Behanzin. But to make it short, they were known for their courage in battle, primarily, of course, against the French, who were colonizing Benin at the time, Dahomey at the time. I should say Dahomey at the time, it's now Benin. So this one I'd like to let the young sisters know that are coming through here. If you're 9 or 12 years old, you see, you're not just on the sideline in these liberation struggles. Sometimes you're in the front, you know, and if you're in the front, you can also be victorious and have a reputation of fearlessness, bravery, and resolve. And I like this picture, you know, the lady who drew it, you know, I sent a thing to make sure she was cool with it. And so I replicated it here. My artist did a good job.
So is this the Black Panther reference?
Yeah, the same warrior. It is.
Yeah.
No, well, the Black Panther is just a movie, yeah.
Yeah,
but
but the reference to the female army.
oh, did they?
The Black Panther.
Have you seen it?
I did see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I have to talk about that
where the
later.
warriors were women, they were,
the guards to the
depicted.
king were women,
Yeah,
a female
I saw
army.
that.
So that's the reference. That's historical
It
reference.
is.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
The guy taking the bullet for the sister, strictly fictional.
Exactly.
Deeply fictional. Preposterously fictional. Okay. Edward Wilmot Blyden. Some of you may have heard Dr. Clark in a lot of his earlier times talking about how they had the group, the Blyden Society, where they were studying. You know, some people really regard him as the, you know, one of the fathers of true Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
You know, coming out of St. Thomas as a scholar going into Liberia. He's also taught in Nigeria, around Africa, Sierra Leone. And the book that he's most famous for probably is Islam, Christianity, and the Negro Race, where he talked about the cultural influences and the cultural continuities to some level between and among African religions, Islam and Christianity. But he's just one of the most brilliant scholars we ever had. And he's held all kinds of posts as presidents and ambassadors of universities and this type of thing.